Hey, and welcome to another Tech Tuesday. This is Chad from Ascension Worship. Last week we talked about when you should not mix to Unity. This week we're going to talk about when maybe you might want to. Maybe. Hey, what do you say? Yes, it's that time again. It's Tech Tuesday. So if you haven't already, make sure you go and watch last week's video, but a super quick recap of when you shouldn't mix to Unity and what that means and all that good stuff. Let's first talk about when I set gain for something, usually what I do, so what's not setting to Unity, but what I would call proper gain structure, is you start with your fader all the way down. You get the instrument or vocalist or whoever, whatever it is, playing at whatever their full level is going to be. And then while they're going, you turn your analog gain up until you're hitting either in the yellow or towards the top of the green, but definitely not in the red or near the red, and definitely not super low into the green. So that way you get a good strong signal, but you're nowhere near clipping, and you've got the best possible signal to noise ratio that you can have to work with. Doing that will give you a good strong signal and also mean that any in-ears that are coming off of your console are going to also have available to them a good strong signal, so they're not constantly asking for more volume from something. So that is normal gain structuring. What mixing to Unity means is it's kind of the opposite. So you would start with your gain down, have your fader at Unity, and then turn your gain up to get the amount of volume that you want in the house. And like we talked about last week, there are some downsides to this, the biggest being that you're going to affect anyone else who's using those channels with a pre-fade mix. So if you're doing that on a vocal, then the vocalist is going to all of a sudden lose the volume that they had in their ears. Or if you decide to make them louder, it's going to go up. It's going to be a constant roller coaster of volume. Also, with your compression and your gating, that will be affected by this as well. So there are definitely times when you don't want to do it. This week, I'm going to talk about the reasons why a lot of people do like to use it, some alternatives that will kind of meet in the middle, and then I'll also talk about some times when I definitely do use it. So let's hop right in. So here's a scene that we were looking at last week. This is something that I mixed with this section of the band using proper gain settings. And if you notice, we're going to be looking a lot at the electric guitars up here. Giving him proper gain, the volume that I ended up using in the house was about negative 10 dB per channel. So again, if we were to do this in Unity, what I would do is I would turn the analog gain down by about 10 dB and then boost these faders up to Unity. So let's talk about why someone would want to do this first of all. There are three main reasons as I see it. First one is uniformity. It does look nice when you have all your faders going across to Unity. That's definitely the most shallow reason for it, but it is a reason. And I think it's okay for us to understand that most sound engineers, the way God wired our brains, at least the ones I've met, sound engineers tend to be a bit OCD and introverted, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just kind of the way God put that part of our brains together. And I'm definitely in that camp as well. But as we keep going, we'll say it's not necessarily the best method, and there are ways we can utilize it later. But that's the first one, is uniformity. Second reason that's got a lot more depth to it is what I call home base, meaning that if I were to turn the guitar up for a solo, let's say I'm just turning up this side for a solo, then I have a very specific level that I want to go back to when that solo's over. I have Unity's my 90% of the time, that's where that fader needs to be set. This can also be a useful trick if you don't have groups and maybe the pastor walks out on stage and you need to bring the entire band down for a little bit. And then once the pastor walks off stage, the music comes back, you need to fade it all back up. And if you need to know what level to fade it back to, that's why some people use mixing to unity. One thing that I do as an alternative to this is I use DCAs. So as we see over here, I have a DCA for the guitars. And if you notice, it is set to unity. So I can have this DCA set to unity and then have my channels with proper gain set where I wanted them, which in this case is -10. And then same deal, I can turn up this guitar bus, DCA when that solo happens. And then when the chorus hits, maybe I go back down to unity. Let's say the verse comes up and the vocal's having a hard time getting on top of the guitars. I can come down a little bit. And then again, once we hit that chorus, we're back up to unity. You get the same exact control, but because it's a DCA, this only affects faders. It doesn't affect input gain. So you wouldn't have a negative effect on your in-ear mixes, or your stage monitors, anything like that, assuming that you have them set to pre-fade, which you should anyway. So I would usually use a DCA instead to get this same control without affecting my proper gain structure. The third reason, and this is again a very good reason, is better fader resolution. And so what that means, again, if we're looking at our channel up here, what I'm looking at right now is the physical distance from here to here. So from 0 to -5 is that short little distance there. That approximately same distance down here is the difference between, if you can read that, -30 and -50. So up here, it's a 5 dB difference. Down here, it's a 20 dB difference. It's 4 times as much. So it's important for you to understand that if you want to have fine control, like if you just want to boost something up 1 or 2 dB, it's a lot easier for you to do that when you're up at unity versus when you're down really far on your fader settings. So let's talk about some alternatives for that. One, again, the DCAs. So even if my faders are really far down here, and they shouldn't be, but if they were, my DCA is still at unity. So if I boost this ever so slightly, it's, again, only boosting it, in this case, like 3 or 4 dB. So DCAs are a really good thing to look at. The other thing that you need to know is if you're having to have your fader level down to -20 or -30 or lower, there is something else wrong with your gain structure as a whole. So if for you to have your fader this low usually means that maybe your system is just too loud. And if you go and turn your amps down a few clicks, then you can take all of your faders and boost them up a bit to make up for that difference. And then that way you'll get better fader resolution and still keep proper gain for everybody's ears. You get better signal to noise ratio, all those good things. The third thing that I've seen go wrong that can cause this, especially in digital boards, is make sure that you don't have any makeup gain on your compressor that is excessive. I went to one church one time that all their drum faders were so low that it was ridiculous. And if you boosted them even the tiniest bit, it was just blowing you out. And so I went and looked at their compressors, and they all had 20 dB of gain added to them, which is incredibly unnecessary. At most, I probably do 3 to maybe 6 dB. A lot of times I don't do any makeup gain on my compressors. It just depends on how hard I have to squash them. But that could be an issue going on as well that's causing you to have your faders be too low. So again, those are the reasons why you might want to mix to unity, is for uniformity in the way everything looks, a home base, so you've got somewhere you can come back to after a solo, or when you turn things down for the pastor to come on stage, and then better fader resolution. And again, most of these issues are fixed with using a DCA. So now let's talk about the things that I do usually use mixing to unity on, which are going to be things that are post-fade to the ears, such as maybe announcement microphones or the pastor's mic, or a really good one is like the ProPresenter computer for church news or whatever you're using for that. Those things are usually going to be post-fade to the band's ears. I like it that way anyway. So that way you can kind of auto mix it for their ears for them. And then 2, especially when it comes to church news, that is usually a very highly compressed, mastered audio file that is coming to you from that. So it will appear to be louder even with the fader lower than, say, your vocalist's microphone. So you will usually, even with proper gain, have to have your fader really low so it's not insanely loud in the house. And that's where you might want to use this setting. So if we take a look over here, I've got a computer channel where we would be getting church news through. Usually what I would do is after the band's done rehearsing, before the service starts, any videos that you have to do, I would set them to Unity and get my gain the way I want, so that when the service actually happens, I'm not having to guess every week, okay, I think this week it was supposed to be at -20. Well, maybe I was wrong and this video is louder than normal and it makes people jump because it comes in so loud. By testing it ahead of time and setting it to Unity, I have a good level I can go to. And again, it's a very hot level coming to me anyway, so I'm still getting good signal to noise ratio, even if I have to sacrifice some gain. And again, this should be post-fade to the band's ears. So if I adjust that accordingly, it should ensure that every week they have about the same volume coming to their ears, because you're using this adjustment to make up for any differences that come from the videos you're playing from week to week. Same deal with MC microphones, or some churches call them announcement microphones. A lot of times I will mix those to Unity because that microphone usually it's handed around. So maybe it starts off with someone who's holding the mic really low and talking in a quiet voice. So you've got the gain pretty hot for them so you can hear it well in the room. But then next up is the young, enthusiastic youth pastor who has it right up on his or her mouth and is screaming in it. So if you just take the fader down, you're still going to be pushing really hard into your compression, and you're going to have other issues. So because it's post-fade again, if you slowly take the fader up and then take your gain down so that you can get it back to Unity, you should have about the same compression settings as you had with the low talker, and it should be about the same volume in the band's ears. So that's usually a good way to go on those kinds of things. Finally, with the headset microphone that the pastor is using, or lavalier, or whatever the pastor uses, usually I will have a DCA set up, just like with the guitars. DCA is at Unity, and then I can have my headset channel wherever it needs to be. I like to do this because then I get a really strong recording for any kind of recordings you have going on. But if you don't have a DCA, then again, you can usually get away with mixing Unity on the pastor's microphone as well. Again, you want to have that. That's a very important mic. You want to have a good setting you can shoot for, and know when the pastor is going to come out and not be too loud or be too quiet. You don't want it to seem like their microphone's off when they come up on stage, and you don't want it to be so loud that it makes people jump. So it's good to have that visual marker. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Again, when it comes to items that are pre-fade for the band's ears, that's when I would say do not use mixing to Unity. For items that are post-fade, you can get away with it a little bit more. And the reason why you might want to do it is, again, for uniformity, having a home base for when you're mixing, and for better fader resolution. Hope this has been helpful for you. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them below in our YouTube page, or you can email me at TechTuesday@ascensionworship.com, and we'd love to help you out in any way we can. We do take suggestions for future videos, and that's what helps to fuel this show and to make sure that it's something that you guys can use. So please feel free to send that through, share us with your friends, like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And then finally, if you're a church that needs help in the person, more so than just online, we do travel out as well. We're located in Northeast Florida, but we travel around if you need us. If that's something you're interested in, again, email us at TechTuesday@ascensionworship.com. Until next time, have a great week. Again, this is Chad from Ascension Worship. I hope this has been helpful for you and your team. Come back here every Tuesday for new information.